Dear colleagues, this presentation, Glocality as instrument of cultural policy and its ability to preserve cultural capital, has been prepared by two people, namely Tomo Chilingaryan and Ekaterina Zvereva from Rudan University, Moscow, Russia. What is glocalization? Glocality today is a universal form of reflection of contemporary reality and, as a category of social philosophy, dialectically connects the concepts of global and local. The terms glocality, glocalization, and glocal have their definitions and are actively used to describe and analyze the corresponding phenomena occurring in the life of society. Global and local are fundamental manifestations of reality. Globalization is an immanent dialectic process defined by a series of empirically recorded changes, heterogeneous, but united by the logic of transforming the world into a single place. Globalization of culture is considered to be the destruction of cultural identities under the influence of consumer culture. Globalism is interpreted as the organization of everyday local interactions and socializations by the direct influence of microstructures of the world order. Among the general public, as well as sociologists, there is a popular point of view that the globalization of culture is associated with the destruction of cultural identities under the influence of the consumer culture. For many of them, it is the Western culture and global capitalism that impose their cultural products on the entire world, in the meantime, standardizing and unifying society. In his work Sociologia Analiza Społeczeństwa, Piotr Sztomka mentions that the birth of the word globalization is associated with the name of the English scientist Robertson, who in 1983 used the term globality in the title of the article discussing globality, and in 1992 outlined the basics of his concepts. Globalization, according to Robertson, is a process of an ever-increasing impact on the social reality of individual countries of various factors of international importance, economic and political ties, cultural and information exchange. Discussions and debates about the development of human civilization, the place of national cultures in it, and their relationships have been going on for centuries. Philosophers and sociologists have written about the ever-increasing growth of self-awareness of local cultures, their struggle for their values and foundations in the face of an ever-increasing influence in the world of global trends. Global culture is a world cultural space in which the interaction and interpenetration of local cultures as cultural and historical entities with their mentality and the ability to preserve their identity in the context of globalization are carried out. In this book, Thomas Erickson talked about spending up the time as one of the fundamental elements of globalization. The critical lack is control over one's own time. All that needs to be done quickly threatens to supplant what needs to be done slowly. The draft also speaks about the need to distinguish between the ideological and scientific meaning of the term globalization. In the 1980s, the Japanese businessman adopted the term to refer to a global location or global view adapted in local conditions. And Coca-Cola has put forward its version of glocalization under the slogan, "We are not multinational, we are multilocal." Before the era of globalization, between a geographical place and cultural experience, there were strong ties. Identity was a collective possession of local communities. Today, globalization has contributed to the erosion of the sacred values. Ethnocultural identities are disappearing, creating a homogeneous, pragmatic, and rationalized context devoid of the sacred dimension. One can argue that globalization has virtually erased the cultural boundaries between states, but still it has not standardized the lives of people in different regions of the world, as cultural differences are traced. Castells believed that identity is not a victim of globalization, but instead is its product. Globalization contributes to the structural complication and meaningful enrichment of identities, the hybridization, as a result of which the identity becomes multi-layered, combining ethnocultural and global levels in a single structure. Thus, globalization eventually propagates identities but does not destroy them. Western European cultural symbols on the territory of a particular country, region, or locality are not a unifying principle. They are not just assimilated, but undergo a significant transformation in such a way as to enter the context of local cultures, become significant and recognizable by a multinational, ethnically diverse audience. If globalization created a united world, no one would ask why, for example, the Scots are striving for more independence within the United Kingdom, and in Quebec there is a powerful separatist movement. The answer is simple. It is the local nationalism that is reviving in response to globalization trends. Along with glocalization and localization, there is such a thing as Easternization or alternative globalization, i.e., global cultural movements that arise outside the West and have a strong influence on it. Alternative globalization can be attributed to religious movements generated by India, Buddhist movements that come from Japan and have great success in the West. Global changes in culture are not connected with the loss of its national originality by the state, the imposition of specific standards on the whole world, and the local unification. It is in the period of global changes in all areas of society that a sense of national identity intensifies and localization and glocalization processes take place. Asian also exerts a cultural impact on the West in the form of the so-called New Age culture. Its influence on millions of people in Europe and America is appeared both at the level of ideas like reincarnation, karma, mystical connections between the individual and nature, and at the level of behavior. The processes of globalization are not limited only to culture. However, using the theoretical concept of glocalization is very instructive for understanding socio-cultural dynamics. This helps to understand that, for example, globalization is developing not so much as overcoming cultural differences, but through the permissiveness of such differences and their strengthening. We must understand the complex processes of glocalization through direct and critical research simultaneously, detailed research and fine-tuning of everyday cultural practices, symbolic imaginary, and social relationships that reproduce global processes connecting various distant planetary points. The authors, Kamo Chilingaryan and Ekaterina Zvereva, expressed their gratitude to the Rudan University Program 5 Top 100 for its financial support while preparing the topic Glocality as instrument of cultural policy and its ability to preserve cultural capital.